Today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show, we're going to really focus on the Kentucky Democrats at the DNC. What are they doing? What are they saying, specifically Beshear? But we'll mention a few other points because, well, quite frankly, every single Democrat is there. And then if we have time, we might hit upon a few other stories. It just kind of depends on how much time do we have to kind of dig through the DNC things, because there's a fair amount to discuss there. But before we dig down into it, as always, tell you every show, because I want you to do it every show. Please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe if you're listening somewhere where you can do those things. Make sure you're also leaving a review for the podcast if you can do that. I know on Spotify and Apple, you can do it. You might be able to do it on other platforms. You'd have to let me know what other platforms you can leave reviews for podcasts on, but I know for a fact you can do Spotify and Apple. And please keep leaving those reviews. Keep letting people know to listen to the show. We do see a fair amount of growth in our podcasting platform. We are seeing a fair amount of listeners, and obviously the more people that listen, the more the impact this kind of information makes. And for those of you who follow my social medias, you can follow KY Cooperrider on Twitter, and then Andrew Cooperrider, my public page on Facebook. But for those of you who follow me on the social medias knows that I post about a lot of the things I talk about on the show. I don't go in as much detail, obviously, in the posts as I do on the show. But what's important is this information is getting out there. And if enough people are listening to things like where I was talking about the contracts that we've approved and what's going on, how our tax dollars are being spent, we can make an actual difference in what's going on right in our backyard. That's why you should listen to this kind of show. Because when it comes to national politics, well, what do you have? You have 2 senators and, 6 congressmen, and that's it. You got 2 senators, 6 congressmen, and those are your choices between who to talk to about the problems going on at the federal level where you can have any kind of input. And a lot of times, you're good luck trying to actually talk to them. But when it comes to your state house reps, when it comes to your state senators, even when it comes to some of your state officers, where they're a lot closer to home, you can have a lot more of an impact on the decisions that they're actually making. But without further ado, let's dig down into it. So the Kentucky Dems, remember yesterday I talked about how the Kentucky Democrats said that they were not announcing who their delegates were going to the DNC because, well, of safety concerns. Well, yesterday there was a photo posted that was shared out by the Kentucky Democrats that had a picture of everybody who, well, I guess you could avoid the picture, but a picture of the notable people that are their delegates there. And a quick glance at the picture will tell you that it's pretty much literally every single one of the elected Democrats in Kentucky and then some, because of course they don't even have enough elected Democrats in Kentucky to fulfill the amount of delegates they need for a convention. And so if you're an elected Democrat, you pretty much already went. And so after they filled those 30 seats or so, you see Beshear, obviously, Rocky Atkins. Looks like Allison Lunderman Grimes is there. If I'm not mistaken, that's who that is. Of course, the one Democrat congressman from Kentucky, Morgan McGarvey. I think he was maybe the one who posted the photo. But Morgan McGarvey's there. You see Sherilyn Stevenson's there. Rachel Roberts is there. State House reps, both those for the Democrats. Rocky Atkins is Andy Beshear's top aide. I believe Jacqueline Coleman's there. And, pretty much, every Reginald, Senator Thomas is there. And so pretty much every single elected Democrat is there. It's funny that they literally, pretty much every single Democrat in Kentucky had to go there, and it just speaks to how much their party's irrelevant in Kentucky. And it's clear, if you watch the convention and what's going on up there, it's starting to become clear why they will continue this downward spiral into being not very relative in Kentucky as long as they continue to stay on the crazy train that they're on. And this crazy train involves abortion. And anybody who watched the DNC speech would have seen Beshear's DNC speech, would have realized very quickly it was all about abortion. In fact, before Beshear went on, he had Hadley Duvall on. For those of you who don't remember who Hadley is the girl who was in the ads for Beshear, talking about how she was raped by her stepfather, became pregnant. She did not get an abortion. She had a miscarriage, but she was talking about how girls like her deserve the opportunity to get an abortion. And because Beshear won talking, and that was an ad point priorly in a very deep red state, it created this belief on the Democrat side of things that they will be able to win on abortion. And so Beshear will be the abortion spokesperson for the Democrats through this election cycle. That will be his relegated role, to talk about abortion, because he's a pasty white guy from the South who's married with kids, and so he gives off the least extremist vibe of some single purple-haired woman with cats talking about how she wants to murder every single one of the offspring that resulted from a man who unfortunately made the decision to sleep with them at some point. I must assume they were very, very drunk. But see, because they think the belief that pushing on abortion is really great, it's causing them to do a lot of extreme things at the DNC, such as handing out the abortion pills at the DNC for free, so people having literal abortions at the Democrat National Convention, marching in protests and demonstrations wearing costumes to make you look like abortion pills. I mean, just some of the craziest things that you can think of, and the Democrats are doing it. And that is certainly painting a very extreme picture of where the DNC is sitting. And I think we really need to discuss some of what's going on there, but what Beshear said, and also just about that role that he's going to play and why the Democrats are wrong about it and why their continued push here will make them look horrible. So first, though, before I talk about Beshear, I do want to talk about Hadley Duvall just for a second here, because she has become, obviously, now a national spokesperson because she's a underage girl who kind of incestuous. I mean, it was her stepfather, so obviously not blood relative, but still incestuous to a degree, was the victim of a horrible act that was done by her stepfather. And really, there's a story here about her mother too that really points to her mother being a horrible mother. But putting that to the side, Hadley Duvall is very awful that those things happened to her. And, if I had it my way, the stepfather there, I don't know where he is, but he wouldn't be getting out of prison this lifetime. I tell you that much for sure. At least that, if not more. Some people say we should throw him into wood chippers. I don't know. But anyways, I'm not saying that. I want to be clear. I'm not advocating for that person to be attacked in any sort of way. That would be illegal to do. So don't do that. But what I am saying is that if I had it my way, he'd at least be in jail for this lifetime. And so my point is only that this has to be, for Hadley Duvall, extremely soul-sucking. This has to be have a lot of wear and tear on you and a lot of wear and tear on literally your soul, your life. And the reason why is it's not because you're advocating for abortion, though being a outspoken abortion advocate does obviously have a lot of it does have a lot of wear and tear on your soul. Anybody who, there's revisionist history and things that go on, but Jane Roe from Roe v. Wade was actually known for later on becoming a anti-abortion advocate after realizing what all had happened. So just being an abortion advocate does wear on your soul. And that's why you see all the time, you see prior abortion doctors, prior abortion activists, people who worked at Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics, switching over to the pro-life side. But I personally have not ever seen a person who is pro-life switching to the abortion side. And it's because it's just soul-sucking. So not just that reason, but and I can say this as a person who, I guess in a way, in only this way similar to Hadley Duvall, became known on a political scene through one specific situation. I became known through leaving my coffee shop open during the lockdowns, through COVID, and became known as I guess you'd call it the face of fighting COVID lockdowns here in Kentucky. That's what I became known as. And talking about and being put on stage and being asked to speak all around this country and asked to take part in things all around this country, which I was, but to talk about freedom of a business to operate and talking about and telling my story about how, I'm just trying to provide for my family and I just want to be able to provide the kind of life for my family that I set out to, and just having that be the story you're telling, because you have to relive that experience because you're talking about the story. Every time you're talking about this, you're telling your story. But because you're fighting for something that's not as, I would call it grotesque or physically violent as what Hadley Duvall went through, obviously it doesn't have as much mental effect on you. I mean, it can, as you're talking about some of the experiences and things like, having people come up and tell you about how COVID has, and the lockdown specifically that you're fighting has resulted in family members committing suicide and overdosing, like that can be very emotional, but at the same time, knowing that you're fighting against that can be very, doesn't quite have the same wear and tear on your soul. But having to stand up there and your story and your political relevance being based around the fact that a horrible, violent, disgusting act happened to you as a child, of being raped by your stepfather as a child, and then having to talk about that constantly, and having that be the reason how everybody knows you nationally, be like you're the spokesperson for girls who have been raped by their stepfathers, and then you have to talk about your story. You're not talking about redemption. Keep in mind, we're not talking about how you move past that. We're not talking about that. She's not there to talk about the power of God's redemption. And she's not there to lead people to Christ. She's not there to talk about the recovery she went through from that and how that is so positive and how that can help others. No, she's up there talking about murdering children and reliving a violent attack while talking about it. And that has got to be just absolutely grinding on your mental health and as I said, on your soul. Like that has to be something where you're just like, this is just a lot of wear and tear on you. And so I just want to mention that, and maybe I wasn't as careful talking about as maybe as I should be, and so I hope nobody takes offense to what I said. I'm trying to express my point as best I can, while still, making sure we're honest about what I want to talk about there, but also while still keeping in check the, not trying to sound cold or callous, because I'm not. I quite the opposite. I want Hadley Duvall to be able to move on from this and recover her life. And instead, she's being trotted out and used as a political pawn by the DNC for abortion too. So keep in mind, she didn't even get an abortion. She had a miscarriage. And so you're not using the fact she had an abortion either. If she's saying, like, if in her mind she's saying, I felt redemption from getting an abortion, then that would be what she'd be talking, but she didn't get one. And so even in her mind, she's not talking about a story of redemption. She's simply talking about a violent attack. Something to consider. But because Hadley Duvall is Andy Beshear's meal ticket, Andy Beshear then gets to speak after her. And like I said, and the DNC does this because they believe that abortion is their saving grace. They believe that because of the abortion issue and what happened in Kentucky, they're forgetting the fact that, of course, Andy Beshear's father, Andy Beshear's an incumbent, Blue Dog Democrats, the political nuances in the state and everything. They're forgetting all about that. All they see is that Democrat won in red state and he talked about abortion, so we need him to talk about abortion. That's all they see. Of course, their people are being extreme, but they're going to get this guy to be their spokesperson. So Beshear gets up there. This is a primetime speech in front of literally thousands of people. Before I talk about anything about what he said, I'm not going to really talk too much about what he said. Is basically, abortion's great, good, Trump and Vance suck. That's what he said. But I do want to talk about what he's wearing for a second. And it's worth talking about. And this is evidence that Beshear is not big stage, national stage ready. I don't know if he ever will be. Because he gets up there to talk, and he's wearing and I'm saying this too, keep in mind, I'm saying this as a person who's ran for office, and who, as a person running for office, gave, probably 150 speeches or so, I would say, total, over the course of running for office and everything else. I mean, we do 2-3 Lincoln Day dinners every week. We do 2 or 3 Republican Party meetings every week. So that's 6. So, that's around 24 to 25 speeches or so a month. Just in one campaign plus the other campaign. So I'm saying this is somebody who's given probably close to 200 political speeches. I've done rallies and things. And so in giving a political speech, I can't think of a single time that I've gotten up to go give a speech, knowing I'm there to go give a speech, and I haven't thought about what I'm wearing. I haven't been like, okay, I need to make sure I have my suit dry cleaned. I need to make sure I've got my shirts that fit me. I need to make sure I have all those things, right? And I'm not talking in front of thousands of people, primetime, national convention for one of the 2 major parties. I'm just talking to a few hundred people at a Lincoln Day dinner, or maybe even 15 or 20 people at a Republican Party meeting. And yet I'm making sure that what I wear fits, I look good in it, and I'm not self-conscious in it. Beshear, on the other hand, and I've ran into this situation where I brought a change of clothes and I forgot like a shirt didn't work or something, and so I had to go change or get rubber. But we used to carry around, honestly, rubber bands to fix this problem. But so when you're a man and you wear a suit, I guess women would run into this too technically, but when you're a man, you wear a suit. Men button up shirts. Women really don't wear man-style button-up shirts. They'll wear blouses or nice kind of things like that, but they don't really wear like a button-up shirt, suits, ties, and stuff. But anyways, so when you're wearing a button-up shirt with a suit, it's important the button-up shirt you're wearing is meant for suits, because a suit is meant that when you're standing at your side, that the sleeves don't go too far down onto your hand. You want them to sit right on your hand. But that means when you lift your arms up to eat or to speak, your suit jacket's going to move back. And so you want to make sure you're wearing a shirt, and they have suit cut shirts that go down to about mid-forearm or so for men. So that way when you raise your hand up and your suit jacket comes back, you're not showing a full, 5 inches of shirt outside of your suit. It looks messy. It looks bad. I'm only bringing this up because this is prime time. And this is when you're pulling out your best outfit. Okay? And I'm just saying this is a thought process. Remember in the past I've talked about it's not the actual visual representation. I don't think that many people necessarily care or anything else. But what it shows is a lack of caring, a lack of planning, and a lack of organization. And I say the same thing when I see him shooting these videos when he's on the road, or anything that's not being recorded by the media itself, where it's being recorded by staff or something. The audio's bad, the angles are bad, he looks bad. And that's because you're not caring about those things, and you're not organized enough to care about those things, and most importantly, you're not hiring competent people who should care about those things. How you present yourself, especially politically, really matters. It really does. So anyways, so he goes up there and he's wearing a suit jacket showing 6 inches of collar. It's a high collar suit jacket too, and he's not wearing a tie. It's fine maybe to not wear a tie if you want to not wear a tie. I've not worn ties at places, depending on how I'm feeling. But if you're going to not wear a tie, you don't wear a high collar button-up shirt, because that's a shirt meant for a tie. It comes up higher because you're supposed to put a tie to it. So he's wearing a shirt too long that you're meant for a tie, has been tailored, meant for a tie, and within a minute of up there, he's just sweating profusely. And it just doesn't look good. And keep in mind, he's gonna try to make a run for president here in probably 4 years. And I don't think he's ready for national stage because I don't think he is himself organized and prepared enough to do that. And I know that was a long tangent just to point out those things, but those are the things you look for. You know, I remember there was this candidate running for office who put out a mailer that went out to like 500,000 people. And there was like 3 or 4 misspellings on the mailer. And while that's funny and haha, it also means that like there are some real big problems going on in a campaign that does that. Either they're not asking anybody else to read through it and proofread it. And if you're not asking a lot of people around you like, hey, how does this look? Does this make sense? Does this flow? You're not the kind of person willing to take in ideas from others. And that's not what you want from a leader at all. You want a leader who can hear with an open mind and seeks out feedback from the people around them and can then weigh that feedback and decide, okay, what to go with. That's why when we talk about who donates to legislators and everything else, who surrounds them matters so much, because that should be their feedback loop. And if they're surrounding themselves with just their big donors, and they're not surrounding themselves with grassroots activists and, you know, people who are in it not for the money but for the freedom, well, it's going to lead to problems. So anyways, that's the only reason why I bring it up. Hopefully you don't think it's too petty to bring it up, but I do think it's worthwhile notating just because of what it shows. But anyway, so he gives this speech. It's all about abortion. And then afterwards, he goes on TV and he makes a interesting comment. And I want you to take a listen to what he had to say.
I mean, think about what some people have had to go through because of these laws. I mean, J.D. Vance calls pregnancy resulting from rape inconvenient. Like, inconvenience is traffic. I mean, make him go through this. I mean, think about what some people have had to go through because of these laws.
So for those of you who missed it, that was Amy Beshear wishing that J.D. Vance's children become victims of rape. Now, I was promised joy out of the DNC. What I'm seeing is wishing rape on your opponent's children. And not only that, but to excuse it, he said that he was doing that because J.D. Vance called it, well, it's just an inconvenience. When somebody gets raped and gets pregnant from it, that's inconvenient. And insinuating that it's like inconvenient, that he's saying it's inconvenient for the victim or inconvenient for the father. And so if he was put in that position, he wouldn't think it was just an inconvenience. But what did J.D. Vance actually say that he was referencing? Well, here's the full quote. My views on this, and this is from 2021, my views on this have been very clear, and I think the question betrays a certain presumption that is wrong. It's not whether a woman should be forced to bring a child to term, it's whether a child should be allowed to live, even though the circumstances of that child's birth are somehow inconvenient or a problem to the society. The question really to me is about the baby. So he wasn't saying that to the person, to the victim or their families, it's just a simple inconvenience. He's talking about to society, they're viewing how a child was conceived, I guess, as just simply an inconvenience or simply a problem in society. They're saying that, well, we're not talking about the kid. We're just talking about this inconvenience of rape and incest. We don't want to deal with that because, and he's saying that society views it as inconvenience. Not him, but society does. And society largely in part does. Because instead of talking about increasing crimes for rapists and child predators, instead of increasing the enforcement there, taking real aim at child predators, child traffickers, calling for increased punishments for rapists, instead we see Democrats talking about killing children that because of there's a rape or sex trafficking or a rape involved in that. So they're viewing the rape as an inconvenience instead of, one, society viewing rape as something that should be treated as an extreme problem. And then two, that child is not just an inconvenience to society, that is a child. So not only did Beshear wish rape on J.D. Vance's children, but he also, to do so, managed to completely misrepresent, if not outright lie, depending on how you want to call it, what J.D. Vance even said. So even those defenders out there that say, no, it's fine for him to say that because J.D. Vance just said it was an inconvenience. So that's fine. Well, he didn't even say that. So your excuse to say it's okay has gone out the window. Now, J.D. Vance did respond. Let's take a listen to what J.D. Vance had to say in response.
His comments are disgusting, and I think it's important that the media not misrepresent what I actually say, because then it leads a guy like Beshear to go off and basically, and he's effectively fantasizing about some member of my family getting raped so that I know what it feels like. I just think that's really gross and really disgusting. Look, I mean, the guy's a complete loser, and he's gone after me repeatedly, but this particular thing, going after my family, really bothered me. And look, the comments that he's talking about, I never once called rape inconvenient. It's a total fiction of the Democratic National Committee. I never said it. I never said anything like it. What I was talking about was the context of an unexpected pregnancy, not one caused by rape. And I think that we shouldn't see unexpected pregnancies, babies that come from them, as inconveniences. Of course, rape is a terrible, terrible tragedy and a terrible, terrible thing. I never said what the Democratic Party accused me of saying.
Well, good on J.D. Vance for responding. And you know, I saw the Republican Party of Kentucky mention this, as they should, that every single media outlet that got involved in the Mountain Dew scandal between J.D. Vance and Beshear, that isn't bothering to talk about this, it's clear evidence you've sold yourself out to the left at that point. Another thing I want to make sure to clarify, and because somebody said this to me, maybe I heard it on another podcast, and it just kind of clicked in my mind, and I never really realized it, so I think it's worth bringing up. When Trump talks about abortion even past birth, I think a lot of people think to themselves like, okay, so you want a woman to be able to go 9 months, they're allowing women to go 9 months and birth a child and then kill that child. And that may be what's going on in some circumstances, but what they're saying is, like Tim Walz, who signed a bill to allow abortion after birth, what they're talking about is the situations dealing with the Born Alive Infant Act. So there are times when abortions occur, and there was, according to one source, 8 of these instances in Minnesota just in 1 year. But there are times where an abortion takes place and it's such late stage that in the process of trying to kill this child, they're born. And what the Born Alive Infant Acts do is say if you've botched, if you're trying to abort a child, trying to murder a child, and you fail to do so in the womb and it comes out, well, you now have to treat that as a birth child, and you need to provide it the same exact medical care you would if a woman came into a hospital to give birth to a child and birthed a child. Okay? And Tim Walz repealed that law that allowed 8 children who were born alive to either be outright killed after the botched abortion on the exam table, or just left to die. They provided them nothing but comfort, didn't help them medically though at all, so the child would go ahead and die. And so not only has Governor Walz signed a bill allowing essentially abortion after birth, allowing children born through botched abortions to just die on the exam room tables. Not only did he sign a bill doing it, but as a result of that, we know for a fact at least 8 children that have been born have died because of Tim Walz. Well, that's what we got time for today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Hopefully you This show is a little bit different. So, but hopefully, give me your feedback if you want on the show. You can email me, info@theandrewshow.com. Once again, that's info@theandrewshow.com. You can also head over to theandrewshow.com, hit the contact tab, but we'll be back here tomorrow. Hope you have a great rest of your day.